Picture a tough-as-nails Chicago kid who clawed his way onto America's TV screens, only to find himself locked in a behind-the-scenes Cold War with the partner he seemed to adore on camera. That's the riddle of Robert Conrad and Ross Martin, and it still grips fans 6 decades after the Wild Wild West first exploded onto the airwaves. But how did friendly banter on set become a legend of burning resentment? Robert Conrad, born Conrad Robert Falk on March 1, 1935, grew up hauling milk, loading trucks, and dodging trouble on the south side of Chicago. Those hard-edged jobs etched a workman's grit into his voice and a brawler's rhythm into his fists. When Hollywood finally called, he didn't need acting school to sound convincing as a man who wouldn't back down. He'd lived it. Yet the very stubbornness that fueled his rise would soon ignite something far darker. Conrad's early paychecks came from stunt work, bloody knuckles, real bruises, and no insurance safety net. Warner Bros. Spotted the spark and slotted him into Hawaiian Eye, 1959 to 1963. Audiences loved his mix of winks and right hooks, but executives soon wanted bigger thrills. They found it in a daring new hybrid show, cowboys plus spy gadgets plus proto-steampunk flair. The gamble became the Wild Wild West. Enter Ross Martin, and the fuse was lit. Martin, born Martin Rosenblatt in Poland in 1920, was the walking opposite of Conrad. Fluent in half a dozen languages, a Juilliard-trained violinist, even a law school graduate, he approached acting like algebra: study the part, deconstruct it, rebuild it in perfect form. That cerebral blow made him the ideal master of disguise, Artemus Gordon, an actor playing an actor. Conrad respected sweat, not theory. Sparks were inevitable. On screen, the duo meshed like flint and steel. Martin morphed into outlandish characters. Conrad leapt from balconies and punched out villains. But crew whispers claimed Conrad bristled whenever Martin stole laughter with a raised eyebrow. Scripts allegedly had to be rebalanced, so West always saved the day. One writer from the period remembers 3 a.m. rewrites ordered because Jim needed more swagger. And the resentment didn't stay on paper for long. During Season 2, rumor says a production meeting clash nearly turned physical when Martin questioned a stunt's safety. Conrad took it as an insult to his toughness. No punches flew, but the room fell silent as Conrad slammed a fist on the table and walked out. Years later, staff still recounted that moment as the day the set froze over. Still, the cameras kept rolling because ratings were gold. The show's breakneck pace bordered on reckless. Conrad performed so many falls that CBS Insurance threatened to pull coverage. He once shattered his skull after missing a landing and shut production for 3 months, only to insist on returning to stunts as soon as the swelling eased. "We started meeting the budget again," he joked years later. But the real cost of those stunts wasn't measured in dollars. By 1969, the Senate blasted TV violence, and network suits needed a sacrificial lamb. Many still blamed the public hearings, but insiders whisper that nonstop injuries, late scripts, and clashing egos made Wild Wild West easier to cut than its ratings suggested. But Robert and Martin weren't finished with each other, not by a long shot. A decade later, the network ordered reunion movies. Conrad, now a producer, allegedly negotiated clauses ensuring Jim West outpunched and outquipped everyone, including Artemis. Crew observed that Martin rolled with the changes, but Conrad still eyed him like a rival. Then tragedy struck on a summer tennis court. Ross Martin collapsed from a heart seizure on July 3, 1981. Conrad, hearing the news, wept and pledged to attend the funeral. UPI photos show him signing the guest book, eyes red and jaw set. So did he really hate the man? Or was that story already out of control? Fast forward. A 2002 Spywise interview finds Conrad laughing at the feud narrative. "There was nothing in Ross's personality for me not to get along with," he said, praising Martin's intellect and culture. He called their differences perfect chemistry. Yet YouTube channels in 2025 still push the bitterness angle. Why? Part of the answer is plain drama. Conrad the bully versus Martin the scholar sells. Recent videos with lurid titles like How Ross Martin Was Sacrificed to Save Robert Conrad's Image rack up millions of clicks, even as new archival quotes paint a warmer picture. Fans debate in comment wars, each side armed with their favorite anecdote. But away from the keyboard battles, Conrad faced a very real nightmare. March 31, 2003, Alpine County, California. Conrad's Jaguar drifted across Highway 4 and smashed head-on into a Subaru. Both drivers suffered crushing injuries. Tests showed Conrad over the legal limit. He pled no contest to felony DUI and spent 6 months on house arrest and began mandatory counseling. The physical pain would linger, so would the guilt. The other driver, Kevin Burnett, endured surgeries and relentless pain. His family later linked a 2005 death from perforated ulcers to the crash's trauma. The civil suit settled quietly for an undisclosed sum, but friends say Conrad never shook the burden. His right side remained partially paralyzed. The once unstoppable stuntman now struggled to button a shirt. Bitterness over old set rivalries suddenly seemed trivial.
Conrad retreated to radio, hosting the PM show from a Malibu studio. Listeners expecting contrition heard flashes of that street-corner bravado, but also rare vulnerability, especially when caller questions drifted to Burnett or Martin. One week, he barked, "I did my time, I live with it, move on." The next, he quietly thanked a fan for remembering Ross with love. Tapes circulate on fan forums. Even in confession, contradictions ruled. Family gave him ballast. His first marriage to hometown sweetheart Joan Kenley lasted 25 years and 5 kids. After an amicable split, he wed Lavelle DeFawn, Miss National Teenager 1977, whom he'd met while emceeing the pageant. The 25-year age gap drew tabloid snickers, but they raised 3 more children and, by most accounts, kept peace even after divorcing in 2010. Yet stability at home couldn't reverse the damage to his body. By 2015, Conrad needed assistive devices to walk. He declined formal appearances, though he lent his growl to the occasional podcast. Rumors of a ghost-written memoir rippled through publishing in 2018, but never materialized. Some say because the chapters about Martin toggled between admiration and ire, and Conrad couldn't decide which truth to print. Agents neither confirm nor deny. Then, in early 2020, the final curtain descended. Robert Conrad died from heart failure on February 8, 2020, age 84, at his Malibu home. Obituaries split between lauding his daredevil legacy and replaying the 2003 crash headline. Fans gathered online, posting side-by-side photos of West and Gordon, toasting the partnership, feud or no feud, that had defined a genre. But the saga was about to spark again. July 16, 2025, MeTV published a fresh retrospective in which Conrad, quoted from an earlier SF Gate chat, admits the job felt like a bizarre dream, but singles out Martin as a key ally in grinding through 70-hour weeks. The article reignited debate. If Conrad himself said working with Ross was extraordinary, where did all the hatred stories begin? Internet sleuths rushed back into the archives. Some point to career rivalry, Conrad's insistence on top billing, the late-night script tweaks, his need to define himself through raw athleticism. Others cite plain misunderstanding. Crew saw tension over schedules and extrapolated animosity. The truth likely lives between those poles, complicated by 2 big personalities surviving a punishing production grind. And new context keeps surfacing. For example, a 1968 set photo recently resurfaced, showing Conrad helping Martin adjust the fake beard between takes, both men grinning. The image, shared by the Wild Wild West 60th Anniversary Fan Society on Facebook, challenges the idea of nonstop friction. Skeptics counter that smiles sell public relations. Supporters call it proof of camaraderie. Evidence cuts both ways, and that's why the story refuses to die. Meanwhile, fandom prepares for next year's convention cycle, teasing panels on myths versus reality, the West Gordon Brotherhood. Scheduled speakers include stunt coordinator Red West's daughter and a former script supervisor, both promising revelations about the men's fiery friendship. Tickets sold out in 48 hours. Clearly, the mystery still has legs. One growing theory suggests that 1960s press kits deliberately inflated conflict to draw viewers, echoing the studio's earlier tactic of trumpeting William Shatner versus Leonard Nimoy spats on Star Trek. If true, Conrad and Martin may have been co-conspirators in a publicity game that later spiraled beyond control. But there's an irony here. The very legend of their rivalry now keeps both actors entrenched in pop culture memory. Younger fans binge the series precisely to spot the tension, then stay for Martin's chameleon shtick and Conrad's gymnastic brawls. Streaming statistics for 2024 show a 300% spike in Wild Wild West viewership after each new feud-centric video drops. Industry trackers report, but don't detail internal numbers. Controversy sells, even 50 years later. Removed from rumor, the show's DNA seeded modern action TV. Without James West leaping off balconies, there may be no MacGyver cockpit dives or Mission Impossible parkour. Without Artemis Gordon's costumes, we might not have Alias or Orphan Black. Directors from J.J. Abrams to Robert Rodriguez have name-checked the series as Blueprint. But every blueprint has fingerprints. Conrad's insistence on realism birthed a generation of actors doing their own stunts, from Tom Cruise dangling off skyscrapers to Keanu Reeves's gun fu marathons. Yet Cruise reportedly keeps a full medical team on standby, something Conrad rarely enjoyed. That contrast has sparked online debate about how Hollywood finally learned from the scars of its pioneers. Still, some lessons came too late for Conrad himself. In the past year, true crime podcasts have probed the Burnett crash, speculating about late-night bar tabs, missed interventions, and studio enablers. While no new legal action seems likely, the shows revive ethical questions. Should an aging star still lionized for toughness also be foregrounded for the harm he caused? Comment threads fill with emotional crossfire. The hero-villain dichotomy just won't sit still. Perhaps that's why each March 1st, social media splits. Half the posts celebrate Jim West Day, raising ever-ready batteries in tribute to Conrad's iconic commercials. The other half share charity links for victims of impaired driving, tagged #RememberKevinBurnett. Both angles arise from the same man, invincible on television, painfully fallible in life. And sitting between them is the ghost of Ross Martin, still wearing a different face every minute. So did Robert Conrad truly despise his co-star? Like most legends, the answer shifts under the light. Some memories tell of icy silences and clenched jaws. Others recall late-night card games in the studio train car. Evidence exists for both realities, and maybe that's the point. People are bigger than a single headline, and friendships can hold friction without shattering. Which version do you believe, and why? One certainty endures. The chemistry these two opposites sparked left television permanently changed. Whether forged in brotherhood or rivalry, it birthed adventures that still feel reckless and fresh. As the 60th anniversary celebrations kick off and new rumors ignite, remember this: every myth has a heartbeat, and sometimes the unanswered questions keep that heartbeat alive. Next time you queue up an episode and watch Jim West trade quips with Artemis Gordon, listen for the layers underneath. Honor, jealousy, admiration, competition. They're all there, flickering between the lines, challenging us to see our own contradictions. And that lingering, unsettling question, was it love or was it hate, is exactly why you'll stick around for the next story.